Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle, brought to you by Believe. I'm JR, joined again by Mike from We Live for Saturdays podcast. Today, we're digging into the heart of Big Ten football, the offensive lines. We'll start by evaluating my latest Big Ten offensive line rankings for 2025, who's on top, who's climbing, and who's way down there at the bottom. Then we'll look ahead. Could any offensive lines shock us in 2025? Next, we analyze the heaviest offensive lines in the conference. Does size give them an advantage, or is it just overrated? Finally, we talk the big debate. Does the Big Ten have the best offensive lines in college football? Can they take down those dirty SEC guys? It's a deep dive for every gridiron fan. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button and share your O-line takes in the comment section. Subscribe as well. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're over there, drop us a 5-star review and help us grow the show. Catch us weekly on podcast or join us on YouTube Sunday, Tuesday, Thursdays at 9 p.m. live. And you can also join us on X at the Big Ten Huddle or email jrsrankings@gmail.com. If you're on X, give us a repost. We would appreciate that. And you can follow Mike at We Live for B1G SAT. We Live for Big Ten Stat for more insights. Let's get into this episode. All right, I said it wrong again in the video. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
Mike, tell people where they can find your podcast out before we get into this.
All right, it's at We Live for Saturday on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. And if you are an audio listener, I just encourage people to go to YouTube and subscribe. We appreciate that a lot. And then on Twitter, we are We Live for B1G Sat. And my personal handle is Alibaba26. That's AHLIBOBWA26.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here, listening. We are going to get into our offensive line preview rankings here and talk about it. So first, what we're going to do, I will summarize it to you. If you're listening on podcasts, I will tell you the order and kind of give some quick thoughts there. If you are here on YouTube, you can see the order. I'll talk through it really fast, and then we'll get Mike's thoughts and get into it. So number one, I have Penn State. I think Penn State just has so much experience, so many good offensive linemen this season. You got Drew Shelton. You got the probably going to be an All-American, Vega, Ioane. I apologize. I'm probably saying his name wrong. Nick Dawkins, Nolan Rusi, who came in last year in relief, did a good job, especially in the playoffs. That first game was a little iffy. I was kind of unsure how that would go, but then in the playoffs, he came on and did much better after that. So I think this offensive line for Penn State is loaded. The other offensive line that I don't think is getting very much credit, I think PFF gave them some credit, but at least nationally, I don't know how much credit they're getting, but it's Oregon. Oregon has a fantastic offensive line coach. They've been a finalist for the Joe Moore Award the past 3 years in a row. I mean, Oregon has had very good offensive lines. Earlier last year, they started off, and it was a bit iffy. It wasn't the best situation starting off, but man, did they get it figured out? Did they get it put together? Had some injuries, and they overcame those, and by the end of the regular season, they had a very good offensive line. Obviously, the bowl game, Ohio State did pretty well in that one, but we won't revisit that, Oregon fans. Number 2 offensive line in the Big Ten. A little bit of a surprise here for some people, but I don't think it should be. Iowa, I have number 3. Iowa has a ton of starts returning. Now, they don't have the most snaps in the world. They are shy of 5,000 collective snaps among their projected starters, but they have some really good players. Logan Jones, probably one of the best, if not the best centers in college football. He is a graduate student. You got Jennings Dunker, who is most likely playing right tackle, but you also have a little bit of a left tackle situation here with Trevor Locke, and I'm not really sure how that's going to go. That's who I'm projecting to be the guy, but Leighton Jones could also be the guy too. We'll see what happens with their left tackle situation, but overall, Bo Stevens, I mean, you guys have guys coming back from last year's offensive line that were fantastic. And at this point, I think Tim Lester is a good offensive coordinator, and he showed that he's going to get this offensive line right. So not only do I trust the players coming back, but so far I trust Tim Lester as well. Ohio State, I have at number 4. mean, national championship offensive line last year. They got 3 of those 5 guys coming back. Well, actually 4 of the guys that were contributing the most. They really had like 6 contributors in the playoffs last year coming back. They went out. They got Ioane, huge left tackle for him. Should be good. Number 5, I have Indiana. Indiana, a very interesting situation with them going out and getting Zen Michalski, who played left tackle for Ohio State in one game last year. Didn't look very good, but they're going to have him, I think, at right tackle, which I think is a much better spot for him. Carter Smith is a very underrated left tackle. I do have some concerns about injuries here. I've debated on them 6th and Michigan 5th, but I just didn't know for sure. So it's a very tight race for me between Indiana and Michigan. And even though in Michigan I have them number 6, they don't have the most snaps or the most starts returning. Sue me, I trust what Michigan has done on the offensive line. Even last season, when things didn't go well to start the year, they started getting better throughout the year. They started doing much better job run blocking. Pass protection was still a little bit of an issue, but some of that is also, was the quarterback getting the ball out in time? What were the reads being met and made there? So that was an interesting situation.
How predictable was the offense?
How predictable was the offense as well? And so, all right, I'm going to go rapid fire a little bit more now. After that, I have number 7, Nebraska, Rocco Spindler, Elijah Pritchett, the left tackle from Alabama coming in. I think they got some good star power there. Rutgers bringing back a ton of dudes from last season, and that honestly was one of the most underrated offensive lines in the country last year, so I think they deserve to be in the top half. Minnesota, I have them in the top half. They have more experience coming back than I think some people give them credit for. Over 57,000 snaps for their offensive linemen, over 76 starts. Looking at them and who they have, I really like Ashton Beers. He started a good amount of the season. And then their right tackle, Marcellus Marshall. Keep that name in mind. Coming over from UCF, one of the most experienced offensive linemen in the Big Ten this year. Nearly 2,500 snaps on offensive line, nearly 40 starts in his career. He's going to be a really good right tackle, I think, for Minnesota. Going to need to see what happens with the left tackle, Kali Tafai. Am I saying that right?
Tafai, yeah.
Yeah, Tafai. So we'll see what happens with them. But overall, I like the makeup, and Greg Johnson, center for them, is a very good center. Illinois is. Oh, good.
Oh, just saying. Greg Johnson actually is an amazing athlete. He was not a good center.
Oh,
he could not handle it. I think, I don't want to be a jerk, but I think maybe the mental part of the game was not connecting, either that or he couldn't handle the snapping and then blocking of it.
Yeah.
But like at guard, I think he's a star. He's got everything you want. I've met him in person. I mean, he is a mountain, dude. Yeah, he is huge. And moving him, I think at guard where he doesn't have to, where he can just go out and hit people and doesn't have to, call, because the Minnesota asked a lot of their centers. They asked them to like call protections and things like that. And, I just think that he's really going to be freed by moving to guard, and I'd watch out for him. I think he's a guy who could get, postseason consideration if the Minnesota run game is what I think it's going to be.
Yeah, well, with Darius Taylor and AJ Turner, you should have a really good run game there. So who do you think is going to start at center then?
Beers,
okay.
Yeah, and
I just had them switch there then. Okay.
And gotcha. he's a heady guy. He's supposed to be really smart, all that kind of stuff. Kind of try hard type. I think he's a pretty. He's waited his turn. I think he's a pretty decent athlete, although maybe not the most athletic. But I think they like him a lot in there.
Gotcha. Like it.
The big word is for Minnesota is that apparently this year's offensive line is much more athletic than last year's edition. So that's exciting to me because they were a good pass blocking O-line last year, but not always a great run blocking O-line.
Yeah, well, it's going to be huge for them this year. They're going to have to definitely be good run blockers this year. All right, next one I have at number 10 is Illinois. Illinois, probably the most experienced offensive line, very, very old. Brandon Henderson is pretty much the only new starter. I think he's going to start at right guard for them. Despite really good experience last year, they did struggle at times, which was interesting to me. So I may be sleeping a little bit on Illinois here. I'm not trying to be down on Illinois, but they have good players. They have experienced players. Just not sure they have the star power of some of these
Yes.
other teams from what I'm seeing. So Illinois definitely a team I could see being up higher, especially with what Brett Bielema does with that offensive line. But going into the season, there's just offensive lines that I think have a better track record, number one, and better star players. But overall, I mean, it's the Big Ten. If you're the 10th best offensive line in the Big Ten, you're a very good offensive line. This is this is just the Big Ten. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Number 11, Northwestern. They brought in a ton of size this season. They brought in a lot more experience. Caleb Tiernan was very good last year. Should be very good for him again. Wisconsin, I have at number 12. They would be higher if Kevin Haywood did not get injured, but I'm concerned about that situation. Looks like it probably is going to be Leighton Nelson at left tackle, and he has never started. In addition to that, Kerry Denko, I believe is how you say it. He is probably going to be starting at right guard, and he has also never started in his career. So, although I do think that Wisconsin has some nice pieces, Jake Renfro, Riley Malman, they also have some guys that just have never started before, and I think that's going to impact things.
Malman's been pretty up and down. I think he's turned a corner, but earlier in his career, he was a problem for them.
Yeah. And he's got the experience now, right?
Yes.
He should be turning the corner with how much he's been starting, how much he's been playing.
Yeah.
USC, I know there's some USC fans that are really high on it. I'm sorry, after last year, I just got to see it. It is what it is. So, Washington, I voiced my concerns about them as an offensive line. They're probably one of the least experienced offensive lines in the Big Ten. I believe there's only one other team with less experience, and that's Michigan. Michigan is the only other team with less experience on the offensive line. So Washington gonna have their work cut out for them. Michigan State had a hard time last year. There's still some concern about who's going to be starting where, and with that, I'm just not really sure where to go with them. So I have them 15th. Maryland sounds like they might be starting some freshmen, Jalen Gilchrist possibly at left guard, and got some other stuff going on there. So I do like the addition of Ratrell Perry from where did he come from? Was it was somewhere up in New England area, I believe, but he was a good addition for them. But Maryland struggled with their offensive line for some time now, and so I just need to see it.
For the whole Loxley era, they've struggled.
Pretty much. So, all right, Mike, that was a very long summary. We'll open it up for you now. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think you did a really good job of breaking it down. I have a few things I disagree on, but overall, I think your rankings are pretty fair. I agree with Penn State at number 1, man. They returned 3 starters. One guy with 6 starts, and he's a former 5-star recruit in Nolan Rucci, right? So the only real question mark is Cooper Cousins, who hasn't started but has played some. So I just think with everything else, how veteran Penn State is. And the other thing is I'll say when I talk about the offensive line and who could get better, I want to say that football is a team game, right? We talked about how at times last year, Michigan's lack of ability to throw the ball made it harder for their offensive line, right? So I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm saying where these guys go to. So I'll be honest, I feel like Oregon's a little high at number 2. Not saying they won't get there. They have a ton of talent and experience, but they have 4 new starters, a bunch of transfers, along with returning center Iapani Laloulu. And I think Oregon will eventually have a great O-line. I'm just not convinced they'll be ready the first month of the season before they have time to gel. So I'm circling, and we'd circle it anyway, Penn State in week 5. They've had a month. Are they ready at that point? They better be, right? Because Penn State's going to be fierce on both sides of the ball. So but they do have kind of a runway that first month. So they have a chance for their offensive line to get better. So I wouldn't put them number 2, but I think they can get to number 2, if that makes any sense. Iowa is who I would put at 2.
So you would drop Oregon just 1 under
just
Iowa?
1. Yeah, I would drop them and I'd put Iowa up.
I get that.
3 starters back, and you talked about was it Logan Jones and Jennings Dunker. I mean, he's a real Jennings player. And everything I've heard out of Iowa's camp has been positive. I think this is a monster offensive line, and if they can throw the ball at all, Iowa is going to be. I mean, I guess we say that every year. If they can throw the ball at all with that offensive line and good running backs, they can throw the ball at all.
I say
It's going to be
I'm
tough.
hoping for you, Mark Gronowski. I don't think Mike is as much, but
No, not as much. But I
if
do
you're playing
think
the SEC, Mike's hoping for you, right?
yes. Gronowski, I will say though, he can run the ball a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So we might see some quarterback options, and if we see that, that could open up things in the run game really nicely. So I think Iowa is a team that's going to have, you know, one, maybe multiple guys who get recognized, you know, postseason for their excellence. The Buckeyes are going to be amazing. They returned 3 starters. They did well in the portal. They stole a guy from us who started for us, who probably won't even start for you, in Phillip Daniels. But you have him. So, you know, Ohio State has not just the talent, but also the depth. So I think, you know, that's Ohio State. The reason they won the title last year, a lot of it was because of the depth of that offensive line, how they were able to overcome injuries. So it seems like Ohio State is right back in that spot. It's interesting. I feel like Ohio State last year, we were unsure about the O-line, but sure about the D-line. And now we've kind of flipped that this year with Ohio State. So that's, you know, that's an interesting dynamic. But of course, the Buckeyes, you know, they reload, they don't rebuild. So they're going to be great. Michigan's 3 starters back, man. I think they're fantastic. And that O-line is Sharon Moore's baby. You know, it's his unit. He's an O-line coach. He comes from the Harbaugh tree. I just will believe until I see Michigan do anything other than be awesome. I think Michigan's going to be awesome. And Indiana, you're right. The depth is questionable.
Hold on, let me ask you about Michigan
Okay, go ahead.
fast. Am I wrong to have some concern about Evan Link at left tackle? That's one of my biggest reasons why I knocked them out of the top 5, was that left tackle position is just so crazy important. Don't get me wrong, Giovanni Halati, I believe in. Greg Crippins, I think, is a good person to have there. Andrew Sprague, I think, has a lot of promise, but Evan Link there at left tackle gives me some concern, and that's one of the reasons, because he was kind of a swinging gate at times last year at right tackle. And so if you're going to move him all the way to left tackle, I don't know. Are my concerns warranted to you?
Yeah, no, I think they are warranted. And you think of, I mean, Michigan's had problems at tackle before, even recently. We think about the famous game where, you know, and how tough it was for Michigan to beat Penn State because they ran the ball 28 straight times or whatever, right? Well, they ran the ball 28 straight times because they couldn't block Abdul Carter in a pass rush. So they were afraid they were going to get him killed. So I do think that that's a legitimate worry. I think Michigan's going to be so run heavy early that he'll have time to adjust as a pass blocker, because, you know, you're not as scared about him run blocking. I think what you're scared about, like you said, swinging gate in the passing game, is him being a problem. But with Bryce Underwood being such a physical presence and the running backs they have, Justice Haynes and whatnot, I think that he'll have a runway to get better. But you're right. If they get exposed at some point, he's probably the guy that gets exposed. So I think that's a fair call for sure.
All right. What were we going to say about Indiana?
Oh, I mean, they're sneaky. I agree the depth isn't there, but 3 starters back. They brought in Irish superstar Pat Coogan. I mean, this is a salty line. And once again, you know, with what they have at receiver and things like that, I think it'll make, you know, it's a team game. I think that'll open things up for them well. I'm worried about Wisconsin without Haywood. Yeah, that happened late. It happened too late to really get a proper guy to replace him. Mahlman, like I said, you know, he's had his issues in the past. I think he's over them, but yeah, I don't know what they look like without Haywood. He was going to be a really key piece of that line. It's such a make or break year for Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. So they're going to have to figure it out because they have that bear of a schedule. Illinois, 5 starters back. I'm struck by the fact when we did our Illinois preview, we had on my pod, we had Big Kurt on from Eyes on Big. And he talked about how they were a mess to start last year, but they kind of just got better and better and better and better as the year went on. And now 5 guys return. So I think you're right. I think it's a good unit. I don't think any of those guys are stars, but I think together they're going to be good. And, you know, they've got a good tight end in there too, and that'll help with the blocking as well. But I've been giving you too much praise. So let's say where I think you're wrong. Northwestern has a lot of experience. I flat out don't believe in their recruiting and development on the offensive line. It has not been there. And not only that, it's a team game. I don't believe in Preston Stone at quarterback. They lost their wide receivers to graduation. I'm not convinced that they have, any skill players that scare anybody. And if you don't have skill players that scare anybody and you have a quarterback who's questionable throwing the ball, that makes it really hard on the line. So I think even if Northwestern is as good as you think they are, I think they're going to end up looking worse because of the team, because it's such a team game,
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I think that you make good points there. One of my biggest things is the size that they have on that offensive line now. It's much bigger than it was last year. Now, they're not going to appear in the top 25 of heaviest offensive lines, so that's not going to happen. But I do think that they're improved in that area. And so if they really focus on running the ball this season, I mean, they got Cam Porter back, like they should be focusing on that, then I think this offensive line could do a good job. Kind of like Michigan has been at times, obviously, Michigan has been much better than Northwestern. Do not hear me try to compare them. All right, don't clip this. But I'm saying where Michigan kind of struggled with the pass protection a little bit, but they were excellent in the running game. I think that Northwestern will do much better at the running game this season, just with the pure size of this offensive line and what they can do. The pass protection will be a little suspect for me, but I could definitely see somebody saying, Northwestern should be down at 13, 14. I guess that's my outlier a little bit, just a little bit higher on Northwestern.
That's fair. And I would also say, look, man, until Maryland does anything, there's nothing Maryland's done to not have me put them last. I don't care that they have a little bit of experience compared to UCLA and Purdue. I just don't. Or that they may look better or whatever. Mike Loxley cannot put it together up there. He never has been able to. I would put Maryland last. And I just think not even based on personnel, but there's one thing I noticed about Deshaun Foster's teams. They fight. They fight hard. They don't give up. They're going to go at you. They're gritty. Like, he really impressed me with how hard his team played all year. And if there's one position where being a try-hard sometimes works out, it's on the offensive line. If you've got the size, even if you're not the best athlete or the highest ranked recruit or whatever, or they have the best length or reach or whatever, if you really want it bad and you're a nasty SOB, like you can make it happen. And so I just think UCLA, I'm not going to put them up like a lot really far, but I'd put them up maybe one or two spots.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that. And I did give UCLA a lot of credit last year because they could have quit after, what was that game? I think it was after the Indiana game, I said. And they kept fighting. Ethan Garbers kept fighting. That defense kept fighting. And they went on to eventually beat Iowa. I mean, that was a huge win for them, a huge confidence booster.
Minnesota had a surprising amount of – I was at that game, and they had a surprising amount of trouble with UCLA.
Yeah.
And, I was really impressed with how hard they worked and how hard they fought all game.
Very true. Very true. All right. Anything else in the rankings before we move on? Mike?
No, I think your rankings are largely really good. I think Minnesota could jump up the rankings a little bit depending on how things go, if things click. I think, Washington, they're going to be so good at the skill positions.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's going to make their job a little easier. So I could see Washington after the season maybe looking a little better, even though we don't love the way they look right now, just because with that athleticism and talent at quarterback and running back and wide receiver, it's going to make it easier for those guys to make blocks.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to ask next. Who are some teams that are further down on this that we see could possibly make a boost up? Minnesota is one for me that I think can make a boost up. It's Nebraska. I know I have them 7th, but if Rocco Spindler really works out well then and the combination of Evans and Pritchett really work out well, I could see them possibly getting themselves into the top 5 type of deal. Michigan State brought in some new guys with what they're doing with trying to figure out the rotation. Not the rotation, but the starting lineup there. If they get the right combination, it could work out, but it could also crash and burn. We'll have to see. But
Sparty's fascinating, aren't they, man?
They are.
I don't know. I look at that game when we play them, and I look at their season, and I don't have any idea. They could go 8-4, they could go 4-8, and I don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And this Connor Moore that's coming in from the FCS, I mean, he's going to be the most, I think, Montana State or something like that is
Right.
where he's coming in from. He's the most experienced guy in this offensive line, and I read an article saying they don't even know if he's going to start. If that's the
Wow.
case, you got your best offensive lineman out of the portal, and you don't even know if he's going to start.
Yeah, you don't like that. You don't like the portal misses. That's what hurts you. And that's what, I look at Wisconsin too, losing Tanner Koziel. We're talking about offensive line, but you want to have a good tight end that helps the offensive line. That's one of the things. That's one of the things I like about Minnesota is having Jamison Gears, and he's been there forever. And I think, and there are some other teams on this list too that have tight ends. Illinois that have tight ends in Arkin who have seen a lot. And that can help out the offensive line as well. Help you, when you're dealing with a big time defensive end. If you have a tight end who can chip and make that happen, that's a big deal.
And chipping's an art too. It's a whole lot more complicated than people realize.
Oh yeah, super tough.
Yeah. All right. Any more surprises you think could move up? We said Illinois, we said Minnesota, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, USC possibly could. Like I said, I just had them down there kind of for the history of ever since Josh Henson's left. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think USC, they got the talent, right? Like if the stars ever align, if they can get together, it's the question about USC is their coach tough enough? Does he make them tough enough or not with the way he coaches and the way they practice? Do they tackle enough? I think they tackled more last year. You know what I mean? But how many physical practices is USC really having with Lincoln Riley? I just don't know. But again, with the speed they have, speed kills. We talk about that all the time in football. So yeah, those guys could absolutely jet up that list, if things go well. And, I think Barry Odom's a good coach. I think he brought in a lot of guys he's familiar with. I'm not saying Purdue's going to light the world on fire, but I don't think it's guaranteed they're going to be the worst offensive line in the Big Ten.
Yeah, by no means is it guaranteed. I don't know what to expect. They brought in a guy from Canada to play center for him. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Let's see.
No, I don't know either, but I do trust Barry Odom. So I just wonder if maybe he did a good job filling that. But Nebraska is really interesting because I like their offensive line a lot. I just don't love their running backs. And that can affect the way your offensive line looks too. But if Dylan Raiola is good enough, it might not matter.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Emmett Johnson has to have a huge year for him if they're going to.
He does. I just think
expectations.
When I'm ranking Big Ten running backs, my average Big Ten running back is Devin Mockabee, right? He's not bad, but he's not great. He's going to get you some yards. He's going to come up short sometimes. And I need to see the Nebraska backs prove they're better than that. For me to, but if they are, right, and they could be, if they are, this offensive line could shoot up the rankings.
Just don't fumble, Devin. Don't fumble, Devin Mockabee. I really do like Devin Mockabee a lot. He fumbles so much. It's hard.
He fumbles too much. He's not, he's fast enough, but he's not that fast. He's quick enough, but he's not that quick. He's crazy legs Mockabee.
He's just a good player. He's a good player.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here are the preseason top 25 teams and the average size of their offensive lines. All right. So I'm not going to list all top 25, but I will list the top 10, and then I'll give you the Big Ten teams from there. So this list put together by CrescentCitySports.com. Want to give them their credit there. Penn State, number one, an average size of 6'5.2", 319.4 pounds. That is massive.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
They're big boys.
Good on you, Penn State, followed by Clemson, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, number 5, and then LSU, Notre Dame, Oregon, number 8, Alabama, BYU. Your other Big Ten teams in the top 25, Illinois is at number 11, USC is at number 13, Indiana at number 17, Michigan at number 20, and I believe that is all of the Big Ten teams. What are your reactions to the Big Ten teams on this list?
I think that they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be nasty, and I think there's a reason. Who are the programs we see at the top? We see Penn State, we see Oregon, we see Ohio State, we see Michigan, right? The teams that have recruited the biggest, freakiest athletes. And, it's who has the best 300-pound dancing bears. And, those are guys. it can be harder to project how good guys are going to be at college at some positions, but I think on the line of scrimmage, it really is a lot of it is about size and length and athleticism, and like you can have a pretty good idea coming out of high school which guys are going to make it and which guys don't have the physical makeup to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that those are the teams that show up. And it's interesting, right? Because I think about, Minnesota a couple of years ago had a 4-year starter on the offensive line named Daniel Fa'alele, who played at about 6'8", 375. And it was hard for defensive ends, even when he was young and his technique wasn't that good. It was just hard for guys to get around him.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if he missed a block, it would take an extra couple steps because he was so big for that D end. So yeah, size matters, man. I know that's going to be your next question. Does it matter? Yeah. We had an old offensive line coach who used to say mass kicks. Well,
Yep.
Yeah. So it does, but if obviously you want guys who can run, that's what really matters is how quick speed kills in football. But like, if you have the choice between, a guy who's 6'3", 290 and a guy who's 6'6", 325, and they run the same way. Yeah. You want the bigger guy always.
Totally agree. It was surprising to me that Iowa was not in the top 25 there, making me wonder about my Iowa at number 3 there. I think skill-wise they'll be fine, but does give me some reassurance that I think USC is probably a little bit higher with them being in the top 15 there. I think they were 13.
I noticed BYU was in the top. It was in the top 10. I was like, I bet they just have those guys just training on their missions, just spending 2 years in a weight room and like hardly even doing proselytizing, just like getting huge.
Could you imagine to have one of those offensive linemen come to your doorstep and proselytize you?
Yeah, that's that would be funny. I used to when I was a degenerate high school kid. Sometimes when we wanted to have a bonfire, I would go to the door and and pretend to be a Jehovah's Witness while my friend stole some firewood. Not proud of it, but.
It's high school. How much are we really proud of?
But it's amazing. But the point is, nobody wants to listen to anyone talk about religion at their door. That's not something anybody wants to do.
Just put the pamphlet in and walk away. All right, Mike. Biggest conference. All right, so this will add into our conference talk here. Biggest conference. SEC is number 1. Not super surprised by that. They got some big beefy boys down south, and they got some athleticism that goes with it. So I'm not super surprised there. The Big 12 is second at 6'4.8", 315 pounds. The Big 10 is nearly tied. The Big 10 is 6'4.9", 314.5 pounds. So they're within a half pound of the Big 12 and actually 0.1 inch higher than the Big 12. So right. I don't really see a whole lot of difference here in the conference rankings. Following that, you have the ACC, Sun Belt, Conference USA, AAC, Mountain West, Independent. It's not a conference, but they include it in the conference, I guess. And then the MAC there. Even though the Big Ten is third in size, Mike, would you agree with me that the Big Ten has the best offensive lines in college football?
I think depth-wise, yeah. I think at the top, it's pretty even between the Big Ten and the SEC. But pretty quickly, you get to like Auburn being in the top 10. And I don't know, man. I've tried really hard to buy the Auburn hype, and I just don't on any level. And so I just think if you're telling me that Auburn's going to be a top 25 team, they're going to have this great offensive line, and, their quarterback finally learned how to throw the ball. And I don't know, man. I don't really buy that. So I think it's either the Big Ten or the SEC. I do say when I was going through prepping for this episode, I feel like the Big Ten might have the edge in upperclassmen. And I think that's big, right? Like if you've got the more experience kills on the offensive line more than any other position, really. I think the older you are, the more snaps you have, the more much of a functional unit you're going to be. So yeah, I think it's narrow between the Big Ten and the SEC, but I would narrowly give it to the Big Ten going into the year.
I would give it to the Big Ten as well. Like I said, when you're talking about Illinois, you're saying 10th in the Big Ten. That sounds bad, but I think if you're 10th in the Big Ten, you're probably in the top 25 of offensive lines in
Yes.
college football, possibly even top 20. So as far as I'm concerned, like I get it if Illinois fans are going to come after me for this and say we got the most experience, yada yada yada. And the chemistry does matter. Don't get me wrong.
Chemistry matters a lot on the O-line, a lot.
For sure. For sure. And that could honestly probably be my downfall of having them 10th. They could move up to 7th or 6th purely because of that chemistry. Yeah.
And especially, Luke Altmaier's so savvy. He's not going to take sacks that he shouldn't take that make you look bad because he's experienced. He has a quick release and he's quicker than you think he is always, So I think Luke Altmaier will make that line look better as well. And especially if they can get the play, get good play at running back. I think that's going to be really key in where the Illinois offensive line ends up ranked.
Totally. Mike, we've done good work here on the offensive line ranking and
It's
preview.
been great.
And I really appreciate you coming on. You helped me out here in a pinch. For full disclosure, I had somebody else scheduled to come on with me. I won't say who it is because I don't want to, disparage him. I fully understand why he wasn't able to come on. But Mike came in at the last second today and helped us out and came on. So Mike, really appreciate you being here. Everybody, we really appreciate you listening and being a part of the episode today. Mike, if you want to one more time, just tell people where they can find your podcast at, where they can find you out on social media.
Yeah, you can find the podcast at We Live for Saturday. That's just the one Saturday. We Live for Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that kind of stuff. On Twitter, we are at We Live for B1G Sat. And my personal Twitter is Alibaba26. That's AHLIBOBWA26. So come check it out and check out the pod. We're in the middle of our preview season. So I assume if you watch this show, you love a Big Ten team. We will be previewing or have already previewed that Big Ten team. So please come check it out.
There you go. Check them out. We're taking a bit of a different approach with our position previews and stuff like that. So you can get your position previews here, and then you can go get your team previews over there. One comment we need to highlight because Dave is in the chat, and Dave is a huge Gophers fan.
Yes.
And Dave actually earlier said, what did he say in the comments? I'm missing it here. He said, "Is this guy a Gopher fan? Can we be friends?" Of course.
We can. Of course, we're friends, Dave. Dave, you follow me on Twitter. I'll follow you right back, buddy. Sky Uma, row the boat, go Gophers.
There we go. I got a little bit of a Minnesota fan in me. I tell you, there's something about that program that I'm starting to really want. It was the basketball team 2 years ago with Elijah Hawkins and all them that really, yeah, man. And I liked Ben Johnson. Sad he's gone, but it needed to happen, I guess.
But it's fun, man. And like you said, PJ's recruiting better than he ever has. So it's exciting times for the Gophers right now, for sure. I will say you and I have something in common before we get out of here, and that I'm not married, but you married into an Indiana family, and my significant other comes from a big Indiana family. So that's become my second Big Ten team as well.
There you go. Well, we've got matching secondary Big Ten teams. What more could two people ask for? Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming on. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time on the Big Ten Huddle. Have a good one, everybody.